So 13 and a half years ago, I thought I'd prepared for the greatest day in my life, and as you can see in this picture, I was completely unprepared for what was ahead of me. But I think things have actually worked out pretty good so far, and as you can see, being almost 12 years into a marriage, we had a big surprise. So many things will happen throughout your life that you're not prepared for, but I think like Rory said, you kind of have to have some flexibility. You know, traditionally, what is career planning really about? Well, it's about establishing goals. What are the action steps? What's your network of people that are going to help you? Who's your mentors? How am I going to market myself to actually make my career plan actually come to fruition? What are the resources that I need? Where do I need to be for that to happen? What are the timelines that I'm going to do this in a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? And then what are the measures of success? How am I going to define success, or do I actually ever able to measure success? Well, it's pretty interesting if you read a little bit about career planning, and this is an article that was written by Seamus Anthony. Talks about setting your career plan on fire, and what does that mean? And what it really means is taking non-traditional steps in career planning. If you think about it, the most successful people in the world often don't have a detailed plan, so they don't spend time and effort of getting this plan and sticking with that plan. You don't always know what the future is all about, so things can change quite rapidly, and you see that in all kinds of careers. You need to be brief and transparent about what your plan is. So over-detailed plans often cause people not to be successful, or the inability to be flexible and not stick to that plan when it's not working can sidetrack your career. This is an article that was written called "Making All the Right Moves," and this is the online where it was published. And I think this is actually, I found when I give career advice now in the role that I have, is something that I'm emphasizing quite a bit. And as it reads, in a world in which organizations redefine themselves completely in under 5 years, it's unrealistic to believe one can plan personal career pathways lasting decades. And really, career plans need to be evaluated on an annual or 18-month basis. So it's more about this career awareness than having a true career plan, and it's a different kind of model. So what do we do in our department? Well, I've been a chair of a department for about 2 years now, and this is what we use, and this is a work in progress, but I think it is effective in some aspects. So we have a career planning document, and this document's about 6 pages long, and it essentially highlights all the things that you really need to think of as a mentor when you meet with somebody about their career plan. The vast majority of it won't pertain to every single faculty member, but it certainly gets a conversation and awareness going. We cover the traditional things like what are they doing clinically, what's their research, what are their education and teaching responsibilities. We look at service, and service meaning what do they do for the department or the healthcare system or hospital, what are they doing for the community as it relates to what they do professionally, how are they progressing on a local, national level. We have intentional conversations about work-life balance, again, finding out what are those things that are happening at work that are barriers for people being effective because it's affecting their life outside of work. We talk about professionalism. I think that's becoming more and more important in what we do as we're evaluated in a very different way than we were in the past. We talk about leadership, not only the development of leadership skills, but what leadership opportunities do people want, or what we need to do to develop them to get those opportunities. Again, whether it's in the department or the hospital, the healthcare system, or the local and national level. We also talk about 1 and 5 year plans. We want people to be aspirational. But I know with kids at home, I actually stopped asking my kids what they want to do when they grow up because it changes so often that they can't even think about what is in long term. Why is this important? Well, if you look at our department has about 125 faculty in it representing multiple service lines. And what we're trying to do is set up really a horizontal framework of networking throughout the department. It's unrealistic for somebody who's a leader of a service line to have all the competencies that are required to mentor people in their career plan. But across the department, you have a wide ranging of talents and abilities, experiences. And by using this career planning process, it allows us to connect people together to maximize their career plan. What we're really trying to do is develop transferable knowledge and skill sets, and I can give my kind of personal experience in that, where we're really teaching people things about human relation, design and planning, communication skills, organization management skills, research and planning skills. If I'm talking to somebody who says they want to be a division chief, to be a division chief, there's certain core competencies that you need to have, because you're going to be in charge of mentoring other people. So if you want to be in those roles, having a skill set of understanding research from a standpoint of grants and contracts, developing a research plan, developing research trials, running trials, is very, very important, even if it's not in the same type of field of people you'll be mentoring. And same thing from a clinical standpoint or educational standpoint and so forth. So what you really want to do as you're developing your career is developing this knowledge and skill sets that are really transferable as you go through your career and have different roles and responsibilities. We also spend a lot of time teaching things that really don't have anything to do with clinical medicine, and that is leadership skills. So things like this, and I highlight these as sources for you. Something on called tribal leadership was an organizational leadership theory, or followership, something very, very different in terms of your effectiveness of being a leader, influencing other people. Teaching things about working as a team. It's going to be harder and harder for a surgeon in the future to work in isolation. Just the way that we are going to be reimbursed, we're going to be reimbursed in really multidisciplinary care, and it becomes more important to understand all aspects of team function, from the person that is considered the one with the greatest responsibility to the one that may seem that they have the least amount of responsibility. And the other thing is kind of decentralized decision making. So how can you be a part of a team or making decisions and play that role when you're not considered the leader of the team? So we're, again, teaching these skill sets are going to be to people, and learning these skill sets are going to be very important as you develop in your career in a healthcare delivery system that's going to be very different than it was over the last several decades. I think more and more important in terms of developing your career plan is being able to manage yourself. This article by Peter Drucker, was in a Harvard Business Review from many years ago, really highlights 5 areas about managing yourself. Recognizing what are your strengths, how do I perform, what are my values, where do I belong, and what should I contribute. And it's not intuitive of what that actually means in terms of what are my strengths. Constantly getting feedback from people that are involved in your career, and these may be people that report to you, people that are your peers, or people that you report to yourself, and constantly getting feedback to understand what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, and how can I improve my performance. How do I perform best? So how do I perform best? You would think, well, I trained to do this. I probably perform best because I'm a minimally invasive foregut surgeon. That's what I've trained to do. But what I really mean is, where do I perform best, or how do I perform best in what environment? Do I work better as a team or in alone? And again, I think it's going to be harder to do that in isolation. Do I work better as a coach or a mentor, or do I need a coach or a mentor? Am I a decision maker or advisor? Do I work better as a subordinate or a commander? Some people work very, very well when they report to other people, but when they get in the role of having people report to them, they don't work as effective. Do you work better under stress, or do you need lots of structure and a predictable environment? Because as you start looking for different types of jobs or work environments, it's going to be very important to recognize this in terms of your overall mental wellness and success. Do you work better in a large or small organization, hierarchical or a matrix organization? I work in a highly matrixed organization. It's very disruptive for people that we recruit that come out of traditional kind of hierarchical academic departments. You know, what are my values? Values aren't about ethics. Ethics are rules that are the same for everybody. So values are about what do you think is important in your life. And this may be things that are important professionally, personally, or so forth. But you really have to understand your value system, because your work environment may influence that and your effectiveness or happiness. You know, where do I belong? Successful careers are not planned, rather they develop. So figuring that out is very important. And how should I contribute? This is an interesting article also in the Harvard Business Review, and this is really about the transition in careers. And I would say at every point you really transition, whether you're coming from a resident to a fellow to attending, or moving through your life after you completed your training. And I think you can learn a lot about people who've made mistakes. And this is actually an article where they surveyed a bunch of people who are in executive level positions in business about job changes and how they made mistakes. And some of these mistakes are very practical in terms of understanding career planning. So mistakes that are made are not doing enough research prior to taking on a job or a career decision, leaving for money. And I tell people that all the time, that if you're leaving to go for money, you're going to find you have all the same problems somewhere else. You get paid a little bit more and it's not that satisfactory. Going from rather than to. So what really aspires you, and what is your vision? Are you really just running from something, or are you really truly aspirational? I think one is overestimating yourself, and again, it's about managing yourself and having understanding and a self-assessment so that you put yourself in the right environment, and thinking too short term. This quote, I think, is very appropriate for this talk, and it says, perhaps the best protection against career management mistakes is self-awareness. So again, I think the self-awareness is very important. And the last thing I want to read you with, having young daughters at home, this is from a novel, actually, that I read to my daughter within the last couple years, and that is, you're on your own, and you know what you know, and you are the one you'll decide where to go. Thank you very much.